Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Kira, after 15 years with TechVantage, we're restructuring your position. Marjorie Thompson announced, her voice carrying a barely concealed note of satisfaction. She sat across from me in the small conference room, flanked by Denise from HR, both of them wearing carefully crafted expressions of corporate regret. The company is moving in a new direction, Denise added, sliding a manila folder across the table. Your contributions have been valuable, but we're consolidating the research division under the product development team. I nodded thoughtfully, accepting the folder without opening it. Inside would be the standard severance package: 2 weeks for every year of service, continued health coverage for 3 months, and a list of career counseling resources I would never use. I completely understand, I replied, my voice steady. These decisions are never easy. Relief flashed across their faces. They clearly expected tears, protests, or anger. After all, I was a 55-year-old woman being pushed out of the tech industry, where youth was prized above experience. What they didn't know was that I had anticipated this moment for weeks. Ever since a misdirected email thread had appeared in my inbox last month. We'd like you to clean out your desk by Friday, Marjorie continued, gaining confidence from my apparent acceptance. We'll need your keycard, company laptop, and phone before you leave. Your team will be notified this afternoon. My team. 6 brilliant engineers I had personally recruited and mentored over the years. The same team that had helped me develop the distributed processing algorithm that now powered TechVantage's flagship product, AccountSphere, accounting software used by over 40% of Fortune 500 companies. Of course, I said, rising from my chair. Is there anything else? They exchanged glances, clearly thrown by my composure. Marjorie recovered first. That's all for now. Thank you for making this professional. As I walked back to my office, I passed the glass-walled conference room where the executive team was meeting. Through the transparent barrier, I could see CEO Victor Lawson gesturing animatedly at a PowerPoint presentation titled Q3 Revenue Projections. The same Victor Lawson who had taken credit for my algorithm at last year's industry conference, referring to me only as one of our research team members. I closed my office door and pulled out my personal phone, sending a single text message. It's happening. Friday is my last day. The response came immediately. Perfect timing. Contracts are ready. Dinner tonight to finalize details. I smiled as I looked at the calendar on my desk. Today was Wednesday. Friday I would leave TechVantage for the last time, and Monday would be fascinating. That evening I met Gregory Sullivan at Meridian, an upscale restaurant far from TechVantage's headquarters. As the CEO of Precision Systems, TechVantage's largest competitor, Greg knew the value of discretion. A private dining at alcove in the back, shielded from curious eyes by elegant Japanese screens. They actually did it, Greg said, shaking his head. After we ordered, I suspected they might, but to cut the very person who developed their core technology. Victor never understood what I actually created. I replied, sipping my water. He saw the implementation, the user interface, the marketing potential, but the underlying architecture, that was just tech stuff to him. The irony was almost too perfect. 3 months ago, I discovered the patent application for my distributed processing algorithm had never been filed by TechVantage's legal team, an oversight they'd claimed. When I inquired, they'd assured me they'd handle it immediately. But something about their response had seemed off, prompting me to check the company's internal documentation. That's when I found it. A strategy memo outlining plans to claim the algorithm as company-developed technology without specific inventor attribution. They'd planned to push me out before securing the patent, knowing intellectual property developed by employees typically belongs to the company. What TechVantage didn't know was that I'd already been working on refinements to the algorithm on my own time, using my personal equipment. Those improvements, which dramatically increased processing efficiency by 43%, weren't covered by my employment agreement. I'd quietly filed for a patent under my own name last month, fully documented with timestamps and development logs that clearly showed the work was completed outside of company time. The patent had been granted with remarkable speed, thanks to Greg's introduction to a top-tier IP attorney. All the paperwork is finalized, Greg said, now sliding a folder across the table. As soon as you sign, Precision Systems officially acquires exclusive licensing rights to your patent. The press release goes out Monday morning, announcing you as our new Chief Innovation Officer. I reviewed the documents carefully, though I'd already memorized the key terms. A seven-figure signing bonus, substantial equity in Precision Systems, and ongoing royalties from all products using my algorithm. What do you think Victor's face will look like when he realizes what's happened? Greg asked, unable to hide his satisfaction at the prospect. I'm more concerned about my team, I admitted. They don't deserve to be caught in the fallout. Greg nodded. I've already addressed it. We have positions for all 6 of them if they're interested, senior roles with significant raises. I signed the final page and closed the folder. In one elegant move, I had secured my future, protected my team, and initiated my work to new beginnings. Greg said, raising his glass, and to owning your own value, I added, clinking my glass against his. Thursday and Friday passed in a blur of exit interviews, knowledge transfer meetings, and saying goodbye to colleagues. I maintained my professional composure throughout, even as spread across the company. Administrative assistants gave me sympathetic glances in the hallways. Junior developers approached awkwardly, asking if I'd provide LinkedIn recommendations before I left. I documented everything meticulously. Every project, every password, every process, knowing full well that TechVantage would soon discover just how thorough they needed me to be. My decision to leave comprehensive transition notes wasn't kindness. It was evidence. Evidence that I had acted in good faith while the company had not. During my final exit interview on Friday afternoon, Denise from HR went through the standard checklist with mechanical efficiency. You understand that any intellectual property developed during your employment remains the property of TechVantage, she stated, pushing a non-disclosure agreement across the table. Of course, I replied pleasantly. Anything developed within the scope of my employment, using company resources during company time. I emphasized those qualifiers slightly, but Denise was too busy checking boxes to notice. And you affirm you have no copies of proprietary company information? I have taken nothing that belongs to TechVantage, I confirmed truthfully. The patent was mine after all. As I packed the personal items from my desk, family photos, a collection of conference badges marking 15 years of industry events, the coffee mug my team had given me last Christmas, Marjorie stopped by, leaning against my doorframe with artificial casualness. I just wanted to check that everything's clear for your departure, she said, watching me place items into a cardboard box. Crystal clear, I replied, wrapping a small award I'd received for the very algorithm now at the center of my plans. The irony wasn't lost on me as I carefully placed it between layers of tissue paper. You know, Kira, these restructuring decisions are never personal, Marjorie continued. Victor feels the company needs to move in a more youthful direction. I looked up, meeting her gaze directly. I understand completely. Business is business. Something in my tone made her pause for a brief moment. Uncertainty flickered across her face, but she quickly dismissed it. What could a soon-to-be unemployed 55-year-old woman possibly do? Will you be taking some time off? She asked, an artificial note of concern in her voice. Actually, I already have something lined up, I replied. I start Monday. Oh, surprise crossed her features. That's fast. Anything interesting? I smiled. Very, a leadership position. I'm quite excited about it. She nodded absently, already mentally moving on to other matters. Well, good luck with that. As I walked out of TechVantage's glass headquarters for the final time, keycard surrendered and personal belongings in tow, I took a moment to look back at the building where I'd spent 15 years of my career. On the top floor, I could see the executive conference room lit up for an evening meeting, likely discussing how to redistribute. I divided my responsibilities among younger, less experienced, and significantly less expensive staff. Little did they know that in less than 72 hours, that same room would be hosting an emergency crisis meeting. Instead, Monday morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in my new charcoal suit, a power outfit I'd purchased specifically for this day. The Precision Systems town car arrived precisely at 7:30 a.m. to take me to their headquarters, where I'd start my first day as Chief Innovation Officer. The press release went live at 7 a.m. Greg informed me as I settled into my new corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Industry newsletters were already picking it up. I've got the communications team monitoring reactions, The announcement had been crafted with strategic precision. Precision Systems acquired exclusive rights to a revolutionary processing algorithm and welcomed creator Dr. Kira Jennings as Chief Innovation Officer. It detailed my background, emphasized my role as the sole inventor of the patented technology, and outlined how Precision Systems would be integrating the algorithm into their next generation of products. Most importantly, it clearly stated that any company currently using the technology would need to negotiate licensing agreements with Precision Systems moving forward. At precisely 9:15 a.m., my phone lit up with the first text from my former team at TechVantage. Complete chaos here. What did you do? It was from Miguel, my lead developer. I smiled, typing back. Check your personal email. All 6 of you have offers waiting. Meanwhile, 8 miles away at TechVantage headquarters, the scheduled Monday morning executive meeting was undergoing a dramatic transformation. According to Miguel's play-by-play updates throughout the morning, Victor had arrived at the office to find the company's general counsel and chief financial officer waiting at his door. Both Ash and Fade had received the industry announcement simultaneously, setting off immediate alarms. By 9:30 a.m., what should have been a routine start-of-week meeting had morphed into an emergency crisis session. Board members were calling in remotely. The legal team was frantically reviewing my employment contract and the documentation around the algorithm's development. They're pulling every file with your name on it, Miguel reported. Someone just wheeled in all the servers from the research division for the tech team to analyze. I could picture the scene perfectly. Victor pacing the conference room, demanding explanations from Marjorie and the legal department. The stock would already be responding to the news. Investors hated uncertainty, and the announcement had created plenty of it. At 10:45 a.m., I received an email from Victor himself, the desperation practically emanating from my screen. Kira, there appears to be a misunderstanding. Please call me at your earliest convenience to discuss. I forwarded it to Precision Systems' legal team without responding. By noon, the industry was buzzing with speculation. TechVantage's stock had dropped 7% since the market opened, while Precision Systems had seen a 12% increase. 3 different technology journals had requested interviews with me about the strategic coup that had shaken the accounting software industry. How are you feeling? Greg asked, stopping by my office as I settled in. Validated, I replied honestly. 15 years of watching others take credit for my work, of being told I should be grateful just to have a seat at the table, and now finally recognition. My new executive assistant appeared at the door. Dr. Jennings, the development team is ready for you in the main conference room, she said, hesitating. TechVantage's CEO has called 4 times in the last hour. Please let him know I'm in meetings all day, I replied calmly. I'll have our legal team reach out to discuss licensing options later this week. As I walked toward my first meeting as Chief Innovation Officer, my phone buzzed with another update from Miguel. Board just called an emergency session. Victor looks like he's about to explode. P.S. My team and I accept your offer. When can we start? By Tuesday morning, I texted back. The full impact of my departure had become clear to everyone at TechVantage. Their flagship product, AccountSphere, relied entirely on my algorithm to process the massive datasets that gave it an edge over competitors. Without licensing rights to my patent, they faced 2 equally unpalatable options: negotiate with Precision Systems or rebuild their core technology from scratch, a process that would take years and millions in development costs. Victor has called an all-hands meeting for 2 p.m., Miguel texted. It was his last day at TechVantage. He and the rest of my former team would be starting at Precision Systems next Monday. Rumor is they're going to try to sue you. I forwarded his message to our legal department, who responded almost immediately. Let them try. Your documentation is impeccable. Development logs, timestamps, personal equipment usage, all clearly established. We've prepared for this scenario. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new role with remarkable ease. The respect I received at Precision Systems was a stark contrast to my final years at TechVantage. When I spoke in meetings, people actually listened. My ideas weren't repackaged by male colleagues and presented as their own. My age and experience were viewed as assets rather than liabilities. The engineering team is implementing your efficiency improvements, Greg informed me during our afternoon briefing. Early testing shows a 51% performance boost, even better than we projected. I had several refinements I never shared with TechVantage. I admitted after I discovered they were planning to eliminate my position. I saw no reason to give them my best work. Their loss, our gain. Greg replied with a satisfied smile. Speaking of which, the first licensing inquiry came in this morning, not from TechVantage yet, they're still in denial, but from Dataflow Systems. They're worried about being caught in the crossfire. At 3:30 p.m., Miguel sent a detailed account of Victor's all-hands meeting. The CEO had tried to project confidence, assuring the staff that TechVantage would vigorously defend our proprietary technology, but the anxiety in the room had been palpable. Several employees had already updated their LinkedIn profiles, sensing the company's vulnerability. Marguerite looked like she was about to faint when someone asked directly if they'd failed to secure the patent. Miguel reported Victor cut the question period short after that. By Wednesday, the industry fallout had intensified. 2 major clients had contacted Precision Systems about switching from Account Sphere, concerned about TechVantage's ability to maintain the product without the algorithm's creator. Our stock had risen another 8%, while TechVantage's continued its decline. I received a call from Denise in HR, the same woman who had slid my severance package across the table just days earlier. "Kira," she began, her voice carefully professional, "I'm calling to discuss the situation with your patent. We believe there may have been a misunderstanding about ownership rights." "I don't think there's any misunderstanding," I replied calmly. "My employment agreement clearly states that intellectual property developed on my own time, using my own resources, remains mine. The patent documentation confirms exactly that. Victor was hoping you might consider coming in to discuss options. Any discussions would need to go through Precision Systems' legal department now," I responded. "I'm sure they'd be happy to set up a meeting to discuss licensing terms." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Finally, Denise sighed. "I'll pass that along." That afternoon, I led my first formal presentation to Precision Systems' board of directors, outlining our technology roadmap with my algorithm at its center. As I stood confidently at the head of the table, not hidden in the back as I had been at TechVantage, I caught Greg's approving nod. By Friday, just 1 week after I had walked out of TechVantage for the last time, the company had entered full crisis mode. Their stock had fallen 23% from Monday's opening bell, triggering concerned calls from major investors. Industry analysts were publishing speculative pieces with titles like, "Can TechVantage survive the algorithm crisis?" and "How one strategic blunder may cost a tech giant everything." Through my industry contacts, I learned that Victor had finally acknowledged the severity of the situation to the board. TechVantage would need to either license my algorithm from Precision Systems or Decision Systems, likely at exorbitant rates that would devastate their profit margins, or undertake a complete rebuild of Account Sphere without using any technology covered by my patent. They've started interviewing for a new development team. Miguel informed me during our Friday video call, where we discussed his upcoming transition to Precision Systems. Victor's claiming they can recreate the functionality in 6 months. I couldn't help but laugh. The original algorithm took me 3 years to perfect, and that was with intimate knowledge of the problem space. "Exactly," Miguel agreed. "Nobody's believing the timeline, especially after your team posted their resignation letter simultaneously. The knowledge drain is massive." That afternoon, TechVantage's attorneys finally reached out to Precision Systems to open a dialogue about potential licensing arrangements. Our legal team, following the strategy we had developed, responded with terms that were technically fair but strategically painful. 3 times the standard industry licensing rate, plus a public acknowledgement of my role as the technology inventor. "They'll balk at the acknowledgement more than the cost," Greg predicted, as we reviewed the response in his office. "Victor's ego won't allow him to admit he pushed out the person who created their core technology. Then they'll have to rebuild," I replied, "and every day they spend trying to replicate my work is another day we extend our lead in the market." The following Monday morning, 10 days after my unceremonious dismissal, I led the first meeting with my newly assembled innovation team, which included Miguel and the other 5 engineers from TechVantage. The energy in the room was electric as we mapped out the next evolution of my algorithm. "This is how development meetings should be conducted," Anita, one of my former team members at TechVantage, said. We spent half our time explaining basic concepts to executives who wouldn't listen. Anyway, that's the difference between being valued and being seen as replaceable, I replied. Here, your expertise is recognized. As we wrapped up the productive session, my assistant appeared at the door. Dr. Jennings, there's been a significant development with TechVantage. Their board just announced an emergency leadership change. Victor Lawson is stepping down effective immediately. The news spread quickly. Within hours, industry publications were reporting that TechVantage's board had lost confidence in Victor's leadership, following the patent oversight that threatened the company's flagship product. Marjorie Thompson was also out, along with the head of legal who had failed to properly secure the patent. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Richard Donovan, TechVantage's newly appointed interim CEO. Unlike Victor's desperate message from the previous week, this one was straightforward and respectful. Dr. Jennings, congratulations on your new position. I've been brought in to help TechVantage navigate the current situation. I'd like to discuss a fair licensing arrangement for your patented technology. We're prepared to acknowledge your contributions publicly and make appropriate amends for the oversights of previous management. Would you be available to meet next week? I forwarded the email to Greg, adding a simple note, Phase 1 complete. His reply came quickly, beautifully executed. The board is celebrating your first major victory for Precision Systems. Looks like TechVantage is finally learning an expensive lesson about valuing innovation and innovators. 3 months after my departure from TechVantage, I sat on the stage at the National Technology Innovation Conference, preparing to deliver the keynote address. The audience was filled with industry leaders, technology journalists, and aspiring developers, many of whom now knew my story. And now I'm pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, the conference organizer announced. Dr. Kira Jennings, Chief Innovation Officer at Precision Systems and creator of the distributed processing algorithm that has revolutionized data handling across multiple industries. The applause was substantial as I approached the podium. What a difference a few months could make. Last year, I had attended this same conference as part of the TechVantage delegation, seated in the back while Victor gave a presentation about his company's innovations. Thank you, I began, surveying the attentive faces. Today I want to talk about innovation ownership and the importance of properly valuing intellectual contributions, regardless of where they come from. My presentation detailed the technical aspects of my algorithm, but also touched on the broader issues of recognition and respect in the technology sector. Without directly mentioning TechVantage, I emphasized the importance of companies protecting their innovators rather than seeing them as replaceable resources. Afterward, during the reception, several young women engineers approached me seeking advice and mentorship. One of them, barely 30, confided, "Your story changed how I document my work. I started keeping detailed logs of my development process on personal time." Smart, I replied. Your innovations deserve protection. As the evening concluded, I checked my phone to find an industry news alert. TechVantage had finally announced the licensing agreement with Precision Systems, acknowledging me by name as the algorithm's creator. Their stock had stabilized, though at a significantly lower valuation than before my departure. 1 year to the day after being told to clean out my desk, I sat in my spacious office at Precision Systems, reviewing the quarterly innovation report. Under my leadership, the company had released 3 groundbreaking products built on my algorithm, capturing significant market share from TechVantage and other competitors. A knock at my door interrupted my analysis. It was Greg, holding a bottle of sea champagne and 2 glasses. "Happy anniversary," he said, setting the glasses on my desk. "The board asked me to share the news with you personally before the public announcement. Precision Systems has officially surpassed TechVantage in market valuation for the first time in company history." I smiled, feeling not triumph but a quiet satisfaction. That's what happens when you value innovation properly. As Greg poured the champagne, my assistant delivered a sleek envelope. Inside was an invitation to speak at Women in Technology's annual Leadership Summit. The topic: Owning Your Intellectual Value, How Proper Documentation Changed an Industry. "You've become something of an icon, Greg commented, noticing the invitation. The story about the executive who didn't recognize what she had until it was gone has become a cautionary tale in corporate boardrooms. Richard Donovan, who had remained as TechVantage's CEO after the crisis, had implemented sweeping changes in how the company recognized and rewarded innovation. Their new policies on intellectual property protection and inventor recognition were reportedly modeled after the program I had established at Precision Systems. It was never about revenge, I said, raising my glass in a toast. It was about recognition, about showing the industry that innovation isn't anonymous. Comes from real people who deserve real credit. To proper recognition, Greg agreed, clinking his glass against mine. As the afternoon sun streamed through my office windows, I reflected on my journey. At 56, I had finally found what had eluded me throughout my career. Not just success, but acknowledgement. My name was now permanently attached to the algorithm that had changed an industry, exactly where it belonged.